Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Frequently Asked Questions with Rival Mind. My name is Andrew Moment, and I'm here today with Harley Helmer.
Yes, hey there.
Today we are talking about what are backlinks. The takeaway for the user today, Harley, is what they are, why they're important, and how do I get more of them?
Yep.
So Harley, let's start with and let's just lay the foundation. What is a backlink?
Yeah, absolutely. So in the plainest, simplest terms, for speaking from my website perspective, a backlink is a link within the content of another website pointing back to mine.
So real life example, I write an article about, I don't know, the top 10 best fishing reels.
Yep.
An outdoor magazine finds that article and they link to it. Maybe they've got an upcoming fishing expedition and what gear to bring, and they link to my article, for example, reels. That's an example of a backlink, right?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
So Harley, why would that be important for my website potentially someone reading it, but potentially I wrote an article about my reels? Why is that important that people are linking to my site?
Yeah, so there's a couple different reasons as to why that's important. One, other websites can contribute visitors to your website. Mm-hmm. The second one, and at least from our perspective, the most important one, is Google uses links as one of its main ranking factors to determine where to place websites on the internet for specific phrases. So typically, websites with more links have better rankings. So realistically, we want content from our websites to have more links so you get better visibility.
Yeah, so to Google, more links basically communicates more value, more authority.
Right.
Resulting in a higher ranking of your website on Google for various keywords and phrases, right?
Yeah, we consider that EAT or EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. The more links you have, typically, the more expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness your website exudes, and that's what Google is looking for.
Okay, so I write great content, people link to it, in turn I get more results. The first thing that comes to mind is how do I get more of these and how do I get them very quickly?
Yes.
So one we just talked about naturally. You write good content, somebody else potentially finds it and then they link to it. But really there are legit ways to increase it by potentially reaching out to other people. So Harley, can you talk a little bit about link prospecting? What is that? How does somebody go about that?
Right, yeah. So link prospecting is essentially the practice of procuring links for your content from other websites. There's two main buckets. The first one would be just a general straight outreach. Send an email to the proprietor or webmaster of a website saying, hey, I found an article or a page on your website that I think would be valuable if you include a link to my website. The second one is going to be a guest post. Hey, I would love to write some content for your website that would be a better value add that links back to my website. You can add a link into the content that you write. Generally, there has to be some sort of value for a webmaster to find in order for them to be willing to give a link back. If you're just like, hey, bro, send me a link. They're not all the time they're gonna give you that link. But if you provide some value to a webmaster, hey, I bolstered your content by writing this paragraph. There happens to be a link in the content to my website, which is relevant. Most of the time you'll get a positive answer, or maybe the owner of the other website will come up with a better idea.
I know, like, one of the easiest examples I can think of is that we've got a client that sells home insurance. And for example, if he wrote a piece about guide to home insurance for new homeowners, he could potentially email that piece out to realtors all over the place saying, hey, here's the piece I wrote. This might be worth including on your site. Maybe that realtor's got a post about guide to buying my first home or your first home. That's a good example of link prospecting. You write an article that's valuable, but potentially not competing with who you're reaching out to.
Right.
And now you've got realtors from all over the place linking to your site. And that gets into our next question of what are all links the same? Why are some more valuable than others? So that is a relevant example of similar relevancy. Before we get to that point though, Harley, can you talk a little bit about the difference between link authorities, that not all links from every website is going to communicate the same amount of authority?
Absolutely. Think about websites on the internet today. You've got mom and pop food blog, and you've got harvard.edu or Wikipedia, some of these massive websites that Google trusts with serious information. And so getting a link from mom and pop's food blog, that's not bad. Mom and pop's food blog definitely found some value in whatever you're writing. Maybe it's not the outdoors article, but maybe you're writing a review on a chef's knife or whatever it might be. If it's contextually relevant, it's valuable.
Versus like Food Network or
Food Network.
HGTV or
Right.
something.
Yeah. Food Network is writing their blog on the top 10 best knives, and you wrote a piece on your website about a specific knife, and Food Network says, wow, that's a really great article on this specific knife. We should include a link for our readers in that section of our, hey, top 10 best knives. It's a corresponding link. So a link from Food Network about a chef's knife is going to be way more powerful and potent than a link from Mom and Pop Food Blog.
Yeah, so and this next point is pretty minor, I would say, but from the standpoint of link placement, how much of an impact does that have? Like, I know I've seen some sites where they write an article and at the bottom of it, they just got, I don't know, like 10 different logos or brands at the bottom linked to it. Like, I would say that's less quality. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between just listing a bunch at the bottom versus maybe in the body copy?
Yeah. So typically, if you're listing a link in the body copy where the user is going to be reading, it's what's considered the most contextual, where a link might show up. Hey, we're talking about this type of knife. Below, you'll see this knife as an example, linked to another website to learn more. Linking at the bottom of a website or on the sidebar or what have you with just a bunch of links is a little bit spammy, simply because it's not as contextual, it's not as natural.
Just random, there's a bunch of potential brands or logos.
Exactly. It could be seen as maybe a paid instance of the link or user-generated content. So it's not as natural. And that's what Google's looking for, is something that's contextual to the article, something that's natural, something that could just happen in real time without the need of payment to get a placement of a link and whatnot.
And we mentioned this in an earlier example, but relevancy, like how important is that potentially like a home insurance versus in the realtor would be super valuable, very relevant, versus if it was an article from, I don't know, an auto shop to a maybe like an insurance company, right? Not as relevant.
Yeah, or we've even seen like we'll have a client that does game services. They were a escape room, and they were getting links from like toy websites. And while those links are still somewhat beneficial because they're links, it's not contextual, and so it's not super solid as a point of reference for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness for that website specifically.
Got it. And the only thing I figured we'd end this video with that I left out earlier was black hat SEO tactics or backlinks. Like, can you talk just a little bit about ultimately the takeaway that we want to leave is that if someone can promise you hundreds of links quickly, it's probably spammy. So Harley, real quick, why is that bad to just buy a bunch of random links?
Yeah, for sure. So one, Google is monitoring the number of links that you procure and how fast you procure them. They have invested millions of dollars in deterring people from gaming the system, because links and backlinks are the #1 ranking factor or a top ranking factor for results on Google. They've invested a ton of dollars into deterring people from doing that. So if you acquire too many links too fast, or if you acquire too many links from websites that are considered untrustworthy or spammy or not relevant to the user, you could actually be opening yourself up to a manual action, which could essentially lead to your website being removed from Google altogether until you fix the problem. So you want to be careful with link outreach and or finding a company that's reputable to help you go about acquiring links for your website in an upright, professional, white hat manner.
Yeah, and this not necessarily wasn't the intention of this whole video, but if you're interested in learning more about this, we do have an article written, The Importance of Backlinks, which actually is ranking #1 on Google. So if you type in The Importance of Backlinks, you can find our article there and learn a little bit more. But if you enjoyed and found anything that we talked about today helpful, you can reach out to us on any of the major social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, even comment on YouTube where you might be watching this, or any of those platforms. You can also fill out a contact form. So any questions, feel free to reach out to us. But in the meantime, we thank you for watching, and we look forward to seeing you next time.